Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about the storm potential. And I am calling this a winter storm because it does have a pretty big potential with whatever storm may occur to be snowy and snow-filled. And that's basically any storm that does occur across the northern United States or Canada at this time of the year has snow, so it's a winter storm. If you guys are new to this channel, hello and welcome. We are a community of weather fans and we just love the weather. We love talking about it, and there's a lot of people that just like getting forecasts from here in details. So if you would like to join, please consider subscribing. And if you are a returning viewer, liking the video is definitely the best thing you could do to support the channel. So let's start off by looking at the GFS parallel. Now, I want to start off by looking at this model because this model is definitely interesting. It shows a lot of activity. I just want to show you kind of the more interesting model at the beginning, and I'll show you the less interesting ones toward the end. The more, the most fun thing at the beginning, so people don't get bored. Not necessarily though. This model will be right. There's a lot of differences and a lot of pushback, a lot of time differences, just a whole lot of confusion, but an active pattern is definitely on its way, and a cooler pattern. You may have seen my my pattern change video that I uploaded today earlier in the day. That was focusing more on the temperatures. Right now I'll be focusing more on the precip. We look at the GFS parallel. By the way, if you don't know, this is a model that's supposed to be a better version of the GFS, the regular GFS. And honestly, the GFS does a pretty good job sometimes, and that's the key word, sometimes. So hopefully this one's better. But notice there's a storm across the northeast, or really right now across the Midwest, bringing showers into Michigan. So if you live across Lansing, Detroit, into Indiana and Ohio, and even as far south as Kentucky, you will be seeing some showers and storms. The further north you go into northern Michigan, the UP, you will be seeing more consistent, steady rain with embedded thunder showers. But if you go to the south, Kentucky, Tennessee, you're more likely to see individual storms that could have pretty powerful squall lines or pretty powerful gusts. Today there's one that came across my area. It wasn't damaging, but it was just really cool to see the wind blowing the trees, the leaves off the tree like feathers. It was just a really cool sight. And that passes through, moves into the northeast, into it around tomorrow in the afternoon. Then the Midwest clears out, but what we need to pay attention to is first this big storm over here. And you can see this is the origin, or really is the origin from where this cold front spawns. And while this doesn't stay in our forecasting area, it's still important because notice what it does to the pattern here. It changes it into a northwest flow and introduces cold air, which is brought by the jet stream. And that jet stream is a very, very powerful stream of winds that is in the higher up in the atmosphere, and you could see that this storm normally would maybe do something, more of a classic system would do, so kind of like this one. You can see this one also came off the west but moved to the north. This one, under the influence of that beast, quickly shoots to the west. You can see it stays relatively disorganized. It's too far to the north to really have any influence from the tropical moisture, or at least at the beginning, and then it moves into the northern United States and into southern Canada, eventually into central Canada. This brings rain to Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, the UP into Wednesday and Thursday, late Wednesday, early Thursday. But it's a quick mover. By Thursday morning, it moves way into Ontario and Quebec, bringing a bit of snow, but that's not the snowstorm. The interesting thing is here is look at all this cold air it brings back. You could see that behind this initial cold front, there was already, the cold air wanted to get in, but because of this storm spinning up warm temperatures, because low pressure spin counterclockwise, so its winds brought in warm air, kind of prevented this cold air from coming in. The cold air bottles up and is almost like a kind of a bottled up reaction. If you shake a bottle and open it, it explodes. It's kind of what happens here, but with the cold air, you can see it just unleashes itself, and there's a cold front that trails down all the way into the southern United States and into the tropics, the Gulf of Mexico, and that's bad news because they are still relatively active. It's not the winter time yet. The waters are still warm, and this could easily spawn a storm, and you can see that this cold front does intensify, and with the GFS parallel model, it shows a pretty significant beast of a storm moving on to the northeast. Lots of rain, wind, and it eventually wraps itself up into a unique pattern. Now, there's been a lot of differences between the models on this storm, but you can see that afterwards we see another little, by the way, this would be most likely occurring at the end of this week, so not awfully far out. We're nearing that time where we should be starting to see things more clear, but we unfortunately aren't, and that's sometimes the case. Notice after that beast, we have more chilly air moving into the United States. We have a little system right there. Doesn't seem to do much, at least with this model. Then we see a large wave of snow and rain move into the northwest and northern United States. How this all unfolds is very interesting to see. We'll have to monitor this. The GFS parallel keeps us pretty aggressive, and I'll show you the regular GFS in just a minute. That one keeps it much weaker. You can see parallel keeps it pretty strong. Another shot of colder air. More chances for clippers. You can see there's a clipper right there which has its own shot of cold air behind it. So the GFS parallel keeps it cold and snowy for much of the United States, unlike the some of the other models. And let's just quickly finish this model run by taking it through the end. I apologize, I went back a little bit there. And you can see that, again, we see at this point, late October, this model shows a very showery pattern with lots of lake effect showers, storms. You can even see some snow across northern Illinois. Very far out, very far-fetched, most likely won't happen, and that's just the truth with these models. A lot of the stuff they show, it won't happen in the way they're showing it. They may be onto a trend, though, and that's something else. And then you can see another clipper, interesting storm, lake effect, so just a ton with this model. This model is just keeping things almost too exciting to be true, and that's usually the case. You can see cold air dominating the eastern United States. And it's taking a long time to load, and I just won't show it because I did an earlier video going into detail about the cold air and what the models are showing, and you could go check that one out. GFS model, regular model. Let's run through this model a bit quicker, and let's look at the differences it has. I won't really want to focus on any particular storm because there's just so many elements on this precip map. It's so many little spins. It would drive me crazy. So, and it would drive you especially crazy, since what I say may sound accurate and it makes sense to me, usually isn't the case, at least for me. What I say usually comes out as a whole jungle of a whole mess. So I try keeping things relatively easy for myself and you guys. Notice what we see here is a cold front. Again, what we have right now going across the country into Michigan, Indiana, Ohio will push into the northeast. So everything as of now is really just the same. And again, the differences only start occurring in a longer range. And notice we do have that system that moves on to the northwest, gets quickly brought into the east. It really takes generally the same track. It just stays a bit weaker, doesn't develop as much of a cold front, but the cold air behind it is equivalent, which is a bit surprising as to, why there's such a big difference in terms of this storm. You can see much less snow. There is still precipitation, which the GFS with this model run has begun to show more of. If I were to go back to, say, the midnight one, it was weaker, barely a wave. So now it's showing more of a stronger wave, so it's giving us a sign that the GFS parallel and any other model that was showing the stronger storm is more accurate, since this model that was showing the weaker storm is now showing more of what they were showing. So you can see still weak, nothing tremendous. Definitely, though, a powerful storm. The wind's not the strongest with this, but a lot of rain. That's still a concern. Not as much snow with this system. Notice it has that, remember the GFS parallel had that giant area of snow and precip across the northwest. The GFS does have a area of precip, just much smaller, more anemic, and way more insignificant. And it moves into the Great Lakes, and it maybe tries developing something across Canada. The rain and snow on the backside, it doesn't seem too strong. We do see the cold air. The abundance of cold air seems to be consistent. Look at that. We see another surge of moisture coming into the east, which the GFS does a bit more with than the GFS parallel. Notice cold air for October, just ridiculously cold temperatures, and hopefully, honestly, I like the cold, but I have some crops that I would really like to still see some warmer temperatures. Obviously tomatoes at this time, usually, unless it's an extreme year, they're gonna see frost. But things like carrots, they could get down to like 24, 25 and still survive. So I want, average, maybe a bit cooler, but not the coldest. And hopefully we don't see the coldest, because that's just really never good. It's always best to see when it's the average. But again, what is best usually doesn't happen. It goes whatever, it happens whatever way it wants it to happen within Mother Nature. And you can see that. I just want to quickly show you some of these temperatures will be, chilly. There won't be negatives. Obviously, it's still October, but 20s, 30s. This will be done with tomatoes and all that stuff. Maybe your carrots, if you live in some locations that are more sheltered, could survive. And I have those carrots, and I'm just really hoping they could get in on it. But everything else, it's time to go for it. Notice we put this cold front into motion across the east. The GFS does a bit more with it, or sorry, a bit less, because I think the parallel at around this time had a stronger storm. And really, it doesn't matter what they do at this time. This is way too far out. They can't even agree on things that are less further out, so this really isn't much of a concern. But I just want to show you that the GFS does keep the activity and kind of the warm, cool air trend that the other models are showing. Notice it runs out at 312 because that's where the new model run stops at. And I won't go back to show you an old model run just to show you the last, 70 hours, because that's usually bogus anyways. Let's take a look at the European, or sorry, let's quickly just take a glance while we're at the tropical tidbits. I just want to take a look at the Canadian, because in order to look at the European, I'd have to go to Pivotal Weather, which I have pulled up, but let's just keep things organized. Notice what we have, again, similar features: cold front, northeast, rain, big storm across the northwest, shoots across the central plains. You can see the Canadian keeps it actually a tad stronger than the GFS parallel or the GFS, and it does develop that cold front, pretty significant storm. The winds possibly strong. They don't look too impressive, but definitely if you live, right around James Bay, the further, the closer to this vortice, Sault Ste. Marie, probably some stronger wind gusts, but thankfully it doesn't seem to be over a huge area. But, sometimes a storm like this may seem petty or pathetic and not big, but it could actually still pack a punch. After that system, what we see is, again, agreement with all the rest of the models, cold air behind it, so that's good. And then the Canadian does bring up that northeast system, stronger than the GFS, and around really just similar to what the GFS parallel shows. A pretty large system, lots of snow on the backside of it, and that second storm across the northwest looks to be equally as powerful, with the Canadian as the GFS parallel showed it, maybe a bit weaker. But you can see that it drags it down pretty far to the south. It's almost like two separate systems, and of course behind it we see lots of cold air. You can see the snow mixing pretty far to the south. I'm not sure about that. That seems a bit far-fetched. But, this is something we would look at in the 300-hour range during October. But once it gets, under 150 and we start seeing snow mixing in so far to the south and the model staying consistent with it, it gives us an indication that, oh shoot, this may actually be a reality. And to be honest, with the magnitude of this cold air that will be occurring, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, you can see that the Canadian just goes off the charts with this cold air. The other models keep it a bit more moderate, so hopefully, again, depends on who you are. I would prefer more of the moderate cold versus extreme cold. But at this point, it really isn't anything we could control. And notice that the lakes do produce a bit of showers, activity, some lake effect. And the Canadian does include another system possibly forming around the east coast midweek next week. So a ways out, but definitely showing activity in cold air. I do apologize about the squeaky chair. It doesn't want to interrupt anymore. At this point, it just wants its own talk show. It's definitely becoming more vocal. Let's take a look at the European before we end this video. This is the model that I think I should have showed you at the beginning, honestly, because this model definitely, I think, has the greatest accurate representation of what will happen. It has been more accurate for the past couple of weeks, and it has been more consistent with what it's showing with these systems, so it's kind of continuing the trend. Again, notice cold front, northeast rain. We have that big storm across the northwest, gets shot across the northern United States at around the Wednesday, Thursday time frame. It keeps it stronger than a GFS, weaker though than a GFS parallel and a Canadian. But what it does afterwards is kind of the important thing. You can see it starts developing the precipitation with the tropics. notice we see a very strong wave from the European with this northwest, southwestern Canadian, northwestern American Clipper. And we see this beast off to the east develop into a pretty large storm. And again, some snow mixing into the northeast inland, even the coastal area, not the coastal, sorry, inland and into the mountains. The coastal area seeing rain and heavy wind. The European definitely keeps us a bit stronger. You can see it gets pretty wrapped up, eventually turns into a negative tilt right there, cold front. Notice that the European doesn't do anything too awfully significant with the Clipper. That is kind of associated with that northwestern energy. But the difference is, if you were to look at the Canadian, when it shows the northwestern load of precip, it shows it at around the Sunday, Saturday time frame. The European brings it in a bit earlier into Friday and Saturday, so that could be a difference. You could see it keeps pretty strong, a strong center and strong snow in the north and the south, but doesn't do much as an overall storm, in terms of real estate. But these two storms definitely interesting. We could be looking at a powerful dancing duo right there. And we go further into Monday, Tuesday. You could see possibly some sort of precipitation, maybe mixing in into southern Wisconsin. We'll see what this does. Again, each model has its own little twist. The European doesn't do much with this low pressure, but it continuously is introducing more precip. And as you can see here, we have a cold front dragging rain and snow into Kansas, Nebraska, and just rain by itself into Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. So we'll have to see. Though again, the European does show the cold temperatures, which is good that we see consistency. Total accumulated snowfall, you could see definitely, I would say, a bit above average for typical mid-October, even just characterized by that stuff. This obviously is where the most confidence is kind of skewed. This may or may not happen. I don't think it will, if I were to take a guess, my educated guess, if you will. But this snow over here, the northwest, southwestern Canada, we'll be seeing a lot of, and that's that. The confidence is high in that. You could see just north of Minnesota into portions of southern Canada, Manitoba, Ontario, 10-11 inches. And into the portions of the northeastern mountains, 10-8 inches. And right there we have a strip of pretty heavy snow. We'll have to see what happens further south where the greater population of the Canadians live. Not much snow as of now they're showing, but again, it varies on each model. Canadian, in terms of total snowfall, does show similar amounts, a bit more to in the Midwest and across general Canada. And you could see a bit more across Pennsylvania with this system. Again, Canadian, not the best model. I would prefer the GFS already over that. Let's just go back to the previous model run, since the new model run doesn't have the snowfall accumulations loaded in. You can see this is more similar to what the European is showing. And the model run before that showed, you can see, even less snow. So it's been all over the place, showing less snow across certain areas, more snow across other areas, and it's honestly a mess. But that's what the weather is in a few words, a mess. Let's take a look at the GFS parallel, which only goes out to 240. So you can see it shows a bit more across the Midwest and Northwest and even southwestern Canada and southeastern Canada as well than the European or any other model. So we'll have to see. But at this point, there's confusion, and we'll just have to monitor this. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya.